In August 2024, I got to check out a retro tech expo here in the Minneapolis-St. Paul metro area. They're not too common in these parts, at least not yet, so I figured I might as well share with you what I saw. Of course, it was hosted by, who else? Free Geek Twin Cities, and right inside the door they had a couple of tables set up with all sorts of stuff for sale. Software, accessories, I/O cards, and several bins of PC components at very reasonable prices. Something that ended up being a popular seller were these tested and formatted floppy disks of varying capacities. And it wasn't just bits and pieces, they brought some vintage laptops and game consoles to sell too. Some exhibitors were here just to show off their setups, while others also had items for sale. One machine that caught my eye was this one, a Franklin PC 8000. Not only was it complete, it looked like it had hardly been used. The plastics were perfect, and the keyboard even still had its protective film. A whole variety of sound options for DOS-era machines were on display and for sale, along with an impressive selection of CPUs, common or otherwise. Before laptops existed, portable computers were called luggables, and this Otrona Attaché had a distinctively 70s color scheme, despite being from 1984. I've never seen floppy drives like this one before either. Something even older that Free Geek brought was an original IMSI 8080 that had been donated. It's fascinating in that it also includes all its original documentation and even some correspondence with the company. This machine has quite the story to tell, and we'll see it again in a little bit. But now for something completely different. How about a modern gaming PC inside a toaster oven? And yes, the start lever on the toaster is the computer's power button. Gaming, of course, made a strong showing here, with a couple of classic Sega systems sandwiching a machine I'd never seen before in person, and in television. They're not lying with this one. Panasonic's 3DO may have been a misunderstood system, but you had a chance to try one out here, along with another rarity, a Sega MegaJet. It's basically a Sega Nomad, but without the built-in screen. And the funky 2000s era Memorex TV it was hooked up to could do this for some reason. If that's not weird enough, how about some of those licensed Nintendo games for the Philips CDI? Sometimes our vintage tech stops working, and sadly this next cube got a bit of stage fright. But one of Steve Jobs' earlier machines was ready for action, and priced pretty nicely too. Probably the oldest thing at the show was this Teletype Rider, which dated back to the 1950s or 60s, but with some modern bits to make it usable again, as owner Derek explains.
There's a step-up converter for it's like 80 volts, I think. There's a range you can accept, and it runs a current loop for this thing.
Oh.
So I made my own cables here from rewiring this because it was wired for Western Union Telex when I got it. So that actually feeds into these wires here. So it's not like the wiring in the house where there's live and then there's neutral. That's it. There's an incoming and then an outgoing, and then just the difference is the current on the line are the bits bits. Right. There's a program on here. Someone had firmware for a different Arduino for doing Baudot code or ITA2, like serial to Baudot over USB. And it was kind of a crappy firmware, so I kind of rewrote it a little bit and made it support this thing. And so what I can do is I do have this Raspberry Pi here that has some stuff where I can get on Wi-Fi at home and like SSH into it and do stuff. I just copied all the stuff off it because I don't know what the Wi-Fi situation is here, and I just put it on the laptop and I'll just get it over USB serial. So I have a thing that will pull for my zip code, the appropriate articles for discussion from the National Weather Service and printed out on this thing.
Oh, that's cool.
So my kind of goal today is, while I'm sitting here, is write some code to maybe even interface with that over serial.
Oh, that'd be cool.
The radios are accessible over serial, so I can just hook up a radio here, and then I could play around and receive messages, which is, we'll see.
That's cool.
I'll at least be able to send a message to it and have a pop-up or something. We'll see.
The setup was giving him a bit of trouble at first, but later in the day, Derek shared a video of it up and running. What Retrotech Expo is complete without dot matrix printers? Music production was well represented here by an Atari ST and an impressive amount of outboard MIDI gear. Oh, and here's something weird.
It's kind of an oddball. The CPU heatsink is sideways, the RAM is on the card, and you end up with two sockets. It also has PCIe and AGP. This is just AdsRock going crazy. They made a few boards like this. They have one that's two sockets, but they're two different sockets, so you can pick what socket you want. They have actually two of those, one for Intel, one for AMD. And the AMD one is socket 754 and 939. This one's 939 and AM2.
If you're using this, do you need to put a CPU in the main socket?
You actually have to remove it.
Oh, you actually have to remove it?
Yeah, it will not let you do anything. And the fun thing is you actually jumper the entire CPU front side bus over the jumpers.
How long is the battery?
Yeah.
Some of the items here were ones I was thoroughly familiar with, but others were deceiving, like this boring-looking iMac G3 that was actually the uncommon Flower Power color variant. Derek took a break from his Teletype Rider to work on the IMSI, which he had painstakingly restored for FreeGeek. These early microcomputers needed to be programmed by hand since there was no built-in storage. It's done by reading the code line by line and tediously flipping the switches on the front panel. Here's a very well-loved ThinkPad 760, along with the obligatory rack of professional CRT displays. But this thing is probably my favorite from the whole show. Industrial PCs aren't exactly uncommon, but this one's a Mac. It was made by California Microwave to control broadcast RF equipment. It's model Mac 1000R with a serial number of 58. It's basically the parts from a Mac LC580 rehoused in a rack mount enclosure, and they even reused the original analog board and front panel buttons. Oh, and it's a touchscreen too, because why not? In keeping with tradition, there was a free table with a healthy amount of stuff. Software, hardware bits, even old newsletters from Computer Reset in Texas from when FreeGeek helped clean out their warehouse. And it was great seeing fellow YouTuber Forgotten Machines here, who was offering disk archiving and imaging services at the show. This wasn't a huge event by any means. It paled in comparison to something put on by VCF, for example, but I was struck by the wide range of things to check out. There was a steady stream of people coming through all day, but it never got packed, which meant it was easy to strike up a conversation with someone about an item they had on display. It's likely that it will get busier and bigger with future events, but overall I really liked the laid-back vibe. Geek Twin Cities did a great job putting this one on, and I left looking forward to these happening more. If you liked the video, I'd appreciate a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe. Here's another episode to check out, and as always, thanks for watching.